it tastes the perfume on your neck. Dig your nails all in my back, 'cause I'm just another broken heart that you've come to collect. When the morning comes, I know that I'll be.
What's up everyone, Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Hall Audio, and we are back with another video. And for the video this week, I wanted to go over how to make a song in the style of alternative R&B pop. So this is going to take some of those kind of R&B, kind of smooth vibe elements, and then take some of the kind of more aggressive hip-hop drums and 808s that you might hear from like an alternative R&B artist, and then we're going to put some pop melodies and pop production sheen on top of that. So by the time we kind of round all of this out, we'll have one song that kind of slides into multiple genres, but feels like a really good balance of all of them. And the song that we're going to be using today is my new single, Clutch. So if you like the song during the video, you actually can stream this one in its full entirety. You can just click the link in the description and pick whatever streaming provider you prefer, and you can check it out on there. I do appreciate all of the love and the support. And then also for this project, I'm giving away all of the stems, which are going to be like the groups that we talk about, and then also all of the multi-tracks, and I'm giving those away raw and mixed. So if you want to practice your mixing, if you want to practice a remix, or if you want to just kind of open up the session and see every element, you can download all of that for free in the description. I also included all of the SERUM presets that I've used in this project. So if you want to download that, that is completely for free. If you want to stream the song, you can check that out down there as well. And then if you want to support the channel, you can just head over to Make Pop Music after this video and check out all of the other goodies we have on there. But we have a lot to go over, so I don't want to chat too much. Let's hop into Cubase so I can show you everything in this project. All right, now we're in Cubase, we're in my session. Again, if you want to download the stems and multis and everything, you can load those up and follow along. I've named them depending on how I have my buses and just different kind of folders and sections. So it should be pretty easy for you to kind of mimic my routing no matter what DAW you're in. But other than that, we're at a tempo of 102. Let's go ahead and let's start with the most basic thing. So this song really started with the idea of just this acoustic guitar riff that kind of filters throughout this entire thing. Let me go ahead and turn off all of the effects so you can hear it as we tracked it. This is what it sounds like. And to be honest, this was just a Taylor 214 that I played myself, and then I single tracked it with the Lewitt 1040, and I used the warm setting on the mic selection mode. We've talked about that mic quite a bit, so that's all this is. It's just going into a Heritage HA81A. So Taylor 214, single mono tracked from the Lewitt 1040 on the warm mode into a Heritage HA81A, and that gives you this. This guitar has nothing on it. Sounds like this right out of the box. What I did was I played the exact same riff twice and then panned it left and right, so you can see that we have a left version here and a right version here. You can stereo mic guitar. A lot of people will stereo mic their acoustic. I'm actually more of a fan of just playing it twice. I find that you run into phase issues a lot less. I kind of like the different vibe on the left and the right, so even if there's a slightly different note, or even if it's played a little bit differently, I feel like it creates a bit more stereo with doing it like that. So again, one mic just played twice and then panned. And then I really wanted this to have some vibe, so what I did is I bus these both to this kind of acoustic riff bus, and you can kind of see how we process them. So I've been using this plugin a ton. It's the AIP from Cornef Audio. Basically, it's just like a channel strip. It's got this really cool mid-range filter that, especially on an electric, kind of really just tucks the guitar nicely into the mix. This little Cornef Audio button right here gives it some like saturation in the mids, and then it's got a cool stereo width that doesn't mess with the phase too much. So I've got some EQ, I've got this Cornef Audio, I've got a little bit of stereo width, and I've got this filter. Just giving it quite a bit of brightness and pop. And then after that, I'm mixing it with some virtual mix rack. This is just giving us a little bit of compression. So this 76 right here, or 116 I should say, is not really doing too much work at all. It's really just catching the major peaks. And then this 401 is at like a 50% blend. That's just kind of giving that guitar a little bit of extra body and consistency. And it's doing kind of like a parallel compression thing, just built right in. This is really where most of the tone from this acoustic guitar comes from. It's this RC20 right here. I filtered it out quite a bit, and I'm using pretty much every module within this. So we're taking a lot of that top end that we added in back out. What I did though is I kind of like changed the relationship between the low and the top. by adding that EQ earlier. So now when I filter this out, it filters out a little bit better and a little bit more consistently. And this wobble's kind of giving us this weird like tape pitch shifting. And then we've got some distortion, some bit crushing, all of the usual suspects of RC20. And then we have a Pro Q right here. Again, just kind of shifting some of that low end and top end. This is really where the guitar becomes alive because we're taking out a lot of that low end and a lot of those like muddy low mids, popping in some top end, and it feels really, really, really nice now. And then that's pretty much it. Then we bus it all to this acoustic bus, which we'll talk about in just a second, but not quite yet. And so that was the starting element. I left the like little pops and the kind of like metronome ticking in the back. I kind of liked it. It gave me the vibe that it was a live track guitar and not just like a loop that I had downloaded from Splice. So the next thing that I wanted to do was I wanted a little bit of like a counter melody. And so I had this idea to add reverse guitar. So I threw on this reverser from Kilohertz. It's in the Slate bundle. And I just have it on 8/16. You could also do 1/2 or 4/8. Just any kind of halftime math doesn't really matter. And so what I did is after I added that, I went ahead and printed it out. So that's where you have this little layer right down here. And I just called it reverse guitar. And then that got a little bit of extra processing. I just put a little bit of EQ on it to filter it out. Didn't need that much. Added a little bit of reverb to kind of tuck it in a space. And then a little bit of kickstart to give it some ducking and swelling. And it gave us that really cool kind of reverse guitar pad. And then I basically took all of that guitar and all of the future guitar that we'll talk about, busted to this guitar bus, and we have a little bit of EQ right here, again, just adding some top end, some Pro Q, just kind of doing a filter. This is really where a lot of the production vibe from the track comes from. You can see right here on this little ridge, we have a lot of filter automation that we'll talk about a little bit later once we structure this out. And then after that, we've just got some kind of, again, more filtering. We've got a tape stop that we'll kind of add in for dramatic effect a little bit later. One more instance of AIP that is not really doing too much. It's just spreading everything out again and adding some extra saturation with that proprietary signal. And then a soft clipper, which I don't even really know if this comes into use too much, maybe in the chorus when everything gets raised a bunch. And then one last Pro Q, just doing some dynamic cuts on this low mid. Because once everything got filtered, that low end started to be a little bit boomy. And so you can see now with that filter engaged, it kind of slides up throughout the entire song. And using that filter to kind of create this production sense, let me not have to add too many things. I was able to use one element in a lot of different ways because I was able to really filter in like what was actually happening. So you can see right here that as this song progresses, the guitar will open and close and it creates just a nice little bit of movement. I guess we can go ahead and talk about the other guitar because it's basically the same thing. It's just that main guitar riff comped down into one thing, and then I just shifted it an octave. So I pitched that an octave down, did the same thing but pitched it an octave up from the original. And added a ton of black hole to kind of give us this like shimmery guitar effect. And so now we have the normal guitar that goes into this super low and super high guitar and then back into the normal for the chorus. And then this little guitar swell right here is I just played the opening chord, let it ring out, and then printed it with a bunch of reverb. We've done a bunch of reverse stuff in the past. So that's pretty much the guitar for the whole thing. You can see that that is the main element throughout the entire song. Now, since we have that all settled in, I can go ahead and solo that out. The next thing that I wanted to do was find some kind of kick and snare pattern. So I ended up kind of just finding something that I could sit on for the verse. Not really doing anything too crazy, just a pretty standard trap kick and trap snare. What I did though is I added quite a few layers. So over that kick and snare, we have this rim hit, and we have some repeater, some vintage verb, and some EQ. Just doing what we've always done on these kind of extra percussive hits, adding a little bit of movement and space. Just gives us a nice little bit of extra vibe. In some areas of the song, instead of having that kick and snare, I decided to just have like some snaps. So we have a dry snap right here that we kind of use throughout the song. And then I layered that up with a roomy snap. Just a snap with a bunch of reverb and some filtering. Just cutting out the highs and the lows, especially after that reverb, it can get really buzzy and muddy. And so we've done all that. And then we have that rim hit that we talked about. And that's pretty much it for the drums. As you can see, as we progress in certain different areas, we don't have any of the extra snaps layered up in the verse, and then we do start to layer them in this chorus. And that just gives us that nice little element of like something being added, even though it's really not. Like, we've already used all of that stuff in the song before, but we go from snaps to snare to then in the chorus, we kind of use all of them. So we go from this to this, and then to this and the chorus. So it feels a little bit bigger. That's pretty much it for the kick and snare relation. Kind of does the same thing throughout the whole song, really nothing super special. What we do after that is add in some hats and some percussive loops. So the main hat that we're using is, I kind of chop up several different loops that I find. I like using loops as a starting point and then just figuring out where I can kind of make that a little bit more unique. So we kind of just have a pretty typical like eighth note. And then in the second half, we add some of those hat rolls from that loop. And that just gives us a little bit of extra movement from part A to part B of that verse. And then in the chorus, it really opens up and the hats are quite a bit busier. So as you can see, one loop chopped up to be three kind of different loops that just kind of progress as the song goes. So if you're ever building your drums, start with simple hats, add in a couple little flourishes here and there, and then kind of let them go nuts for the chorus. Super easy way to use one loop three ways. On top of the hats, I decided to do some extra percussive stuff. So let me kind of show you what the little percussive elements are doing in this verse. Let me mute some of the stuff we haven't talked about yet. So right here where I have these snaps, I wanted this kind of like back and forth like bed loop, just to give me a little bit of movement. So we have that. Then when the drums come in, I keep that loop going, but I have this stick loop on top as well, just to give us some extra movement. I like having a lot of different percussive things happening. And to me, having that stick loop there really makes this not just feel like a super generic R&B trap loop. It kind of gives it a little bit more pizzazz. It kind of takes it outside of that genre from just being super textbook. And so doing things like that and mixing some of these different aesthetics in something like a drum arrangement can be really, really nice to kind of shift genres or shift vibes. And then in the chorus, we have all of that and just this one extra little guy right here. Sounds like nothing crazy, but once you layer up all of these drums and all of these percussion elements and loops, you get this really, really cool rhythm that kind of feels cohesive, but has a lot of these little ear candy things happening. Put the guitar on that, and we are cooking with gas. All right, now let's go ahead and let's talk about the next thing, and that is this 808. One of the best elements in the song. It's one of the things that as I was sending it to people in playlists, they all picked up on. I'm a big fan of using 808s and using 808 slides, so this is where we can start talking about some of the presets that you can download. I did include this 808, so you can download this. There is no processing on this in the song whatsoever besides cutting a couple low mids, but there's no R bass, there's no extra saturation, nothing. It's just kind of all cooked into this preset, and it sounds pretty gnarly. So what I'm doing, I'll get a lot of questions about this slide, I'm sure. I have just automated in little pitch bend points right here, so you can see it slide down, you can see it slide up. And the way to kind of make that happen is if you're using SERUM or really any kind of synth plugin to do your 808, make sure that your pitch bend wheel is ranged either at 12 or at 24. So it's going to be 1 octave at 12 or 2 octaves at 24, because that's 24 notes that it'll shift up when you drive all the way up, or 24 notes down. In this case, it's 12. So if I play a note, once I shift that pitch bend all the way up, it's going to be, we're going from this A to this A. Same thing the other way. Now we're going from this A to this A. So if you turn that on -12 instead of like -2 that it defaults to, you'll get that whole octave jump. Then you can kind of play around with it like this. That layered over that drum, I mean, gives it all the movement that we really, really need in this verse. And then with that guitar layered over top, and that 808 is pretty much the star of the song. We have that also happening in the verse. It says 808 hook as like a different thing. All this is that 808 with some R bass printed on, so it's a little bit thicker and fatter. We've just got it at 60 to kind of boost some of those sub elements, and then I think we might have sustained the bass a little bit, so it kind of decays a little bit longer to give us a little bit more low end, because the faster an 808 ends, it's going to kind of have that perceived low end suck out. So if you want your 808 to feel bigger, maybe lengthen to decay a little bit. That's what we did here. Because you can hear how much longer that lasts in. You can already hear that starting to decay, but on this one, it's almost like a consistent sine wave that doesn't even really move. The other bass that I want to talk about right now is for this pre-chorus right here, where I showed you those guitars that are pitched down and up an octave. Everything kind of sucks out for that part, and I didn't want like the super aggressive 808. So I just have this kind of respace pad that I am sucking a little bit of the low end out of, so it doesn't take up too much room, because I want the verse to feel big and I want the chorus to feel even bigger. So for that pre-chorus, I'm going to take away a little bit of that low end. And you can see right here that I've automated this volume up. So there's no automation happening within SERUM. I'm not using any LFOs or anything like that. I suppose I probably could have, but I'd already added it and just kind of wanted to add that movement last minute. So again, just taking away some of that low end so it's not so thick. If I take that away, you'll see that we have too much energy for this pre-chorus. Granted, there's a bit of gain happening on here as well, so I mean, it's hard to tell, but if I were to gain that, like, let's just say I mute these. Here we go. Too much low end. Don't need it all. Kind of want a drop in energy. So that's pretty much all of the bass. We'll talk about the second verse later. There is a new bass that we'll introduce in, but I'm just trying to get you up until the chorus right now. So once we've added all of that, we've got our drums, we've got guitar, we've got bass. There's not much synth happening in the song. We can go over what is. I have a little synth pad happening right here over the first part of this verse, the part that doesn't have any kick or snare. It's just got the snaps. It's really just this saw pad that I filtered out quite a bit. And again, you can download this. It's in the downloads that we've given you guys. But all I'm doing is adding a little bit of kickstart. I just wanted something that had a little bit of space there to just sit under that guitar. You probably wouldn't even notice it if I don't point it out, but little things like that can really help intensify an arrangement, especially once you put vocals over it. We have that come back in this pre-chorus. As you can see, it kind of disappears for the verse. In the pre-chorus, we have that come back. We also have this little piano. This is the only preset that's not included because it is just a piano from Arturia Piano 5. And I've put cloner on it to kind of give it this weird stereo spread and some EQ to thin it out. Here's what it sounds like. With cloner, it sounds like this. Kind of gives it like this cool organy Rhodes, like rotary vibe. I just really liked it. And then with the EQ, it sounds a little bit something like this. That's all that's happening there. And then the last part is this chorus. This is where everything kind of comes in. So we do have that pad, we do have that piano, but we've also got these little guys right here. I'm calling them the levitating keys because that's what the preset's called. Sounds like this. It's from our Poptopia pack, but I went ahead and gave you the preset anyway in that download. We put on a doubler to spread it, just to give it some, it kind of gives it like this like nightmarish quality, which I kind of liked for this. We have this bass that layers over with the 808 for some harmonics and some extra grit. As you can see, band passing out some of the high end and low end. If we turn that off, it gets pretty gnarly. We don't really need all of that. Just layers over nice with that 808. Gives us some grit and some width because it's detuned quite a bit. Then we have this back melody that's so soft that you probably won't even hear it in the mix. Processed with just a lot of extra delay and reverb for some space. And then we have a couple different plucks that kind of all make one big sound. So we have this one right here doing this guy. No additional processing on that. We have this synth right here that has just some kind of tilt shift EQ. And then we have this one right here, again, probably just that tilt shift EQ, yep. And we've panned this one all the way to one side because what we're gonna do with this last one is pan this to the other side, give us a little bit more stereo width. So all of these synths are kind of aggressive, but I've tucked them so low into the mix that you're not really paying attention to them. But once I put them with that guitar, that bass, and all of those drums, it really makes that chorus hit immensely harder. Check this out. If I turn that off, here's what the chorus sounds like. I felt like we needed something there, so it really, really helps. Now that we've talked about the general production, let's go ahead and talk about the vocals. As you can see here, we have some rises and crashes and hits. That's not doing anything worth pointing out. It's just a bunch of different samples. They're all in the stems, but that's all there. For the vocal production of this song, it's not as crazy as some of the stuff that we've gone about. We have this intro vocal right here that's a vocal chop that we'll talk about post-chorus, but kind of starts the song off. So it was just the phrase that I sang, printed it with a bunch of sidechain and distortion and stuff like that, and then just put some reverb and some filtering on and let that kind of open up as that intro plays through. And then once we come into the verses, we really just have a lead vocal and the lead vocal pitched down an octave. So here's what the here's what it sounds like with only the lead vocal.
Got a little baddie in a drop top coupe out front. Swear that she gon' ruin my life or have some fun.
So for the mic on this, I use the Lewitt LCT 1040 on the saturated setting. Again, into my Heritage Audio HA81A. We've already done all of these vocals for this song in a video maybe 3 weeks back, so I'll link that. I think it was called like 5 tips to take your vocals to the next level or something. There will be a link in the description, so if you want to see the full vocal mix in detail where I talk about the compression, the EQ, the vocal sends, go check that out because that was a whole video by itself. But you can see right here, we've just got some, you know, tuning, compression, de-essing, EQ. There's a little bit of a deplosive because I was a little close on the mic, but other than that, that's pretty much it. Nothing too intense, and we talk about it in that other video. So for the production, we went ahead and layered this vocal over it. Same vocal chain, just pitched down an octave with auto-tune, 12 semitones right here, and then spread out with a doubler. We've done this a billion times in the tutorials. I'm not going to go over it too much.
Have some fun. I don't think I can escape your clutch.
We got some of these ad libs coming in that I just processed with some doubler, some repeater, and a bunch of reverb. Kind of wanted that like super wide, super reverby, like Travis Scott, like beam ad lib in the back to just kind of carry it, give it a little bit of extra movement behind.
Yeah. No. Right now.
And that really just happens over top because there's not much else happening for these vocals. And then I've just got these little delay throws that I've printed. So if I want a delay throw on a certain phrase, all I'll do is duplicate the vocal onto a stereo track and then put some kind of delay, whether that's repeater, H delay, echo boy, whatever, on 100% wet with whatever settings I need to, and then I have full control over that. So we have a couple. We have an eighth note and a quarter note that we kind of use throughout the song. And we just automate that as we go. That's pretty much it for the verses, just one vocal, that low vocal, and then some extra ad libs and throws and stuff like that. Then when we get to the core or the pre-chorus, this is where we have a little bit more vocal production. We have a lead vocal.
Tie me up and let me down again.
We have a left vocal and a right vocal.
Tie me up and let me down again. I don't wanna get.
And then we have this high harmony that's just on like this doubled wide track by itself. All of that together sounds like this.
Tie me up and let me down again. I know what the games you play.
And we did this like call and response thing where then I have the I know all the games you play is a different lead vocal that I've put a doubler on, turned it down quite a bit, so it's kind of up the middle and then spreads out for that one phrase and then comes back up the middle. So it sounds a little bit something like this with all of the production and stuff like that. We've also got these extra falsetto vocals on that phrase.
I know what the games you play.
And then all together with all of the production sounds a little bit something like this.
Tie me up and let me down again. I know what the games you play. You swear you won't come around again, but baby, I can taste the perfume.
Then we go into the chorus where there is quite a bit of vocals. So we have the lead up the middle.
I can taste the perfume on your neck.
Then we have the left and the right vocal.
I can taste the perfume on your neck.
Then we have the lower vocal stacked under.
I can taste the perfume on your neck. Dig your nails up.
We have that artificial low vocal that's being duplicated from that really high falsetto vocal. And so what I did is I also made a low vocal that was duplicated from these lower harmonies that sounds like this. Mix that with some eighth note delay throws, some quarter note delay throws, and then sometimes in a chorus I like to pop in an extra vocal reverb that I'll sidechain to the lead vocal. So you can see right here, we've got a full chain, we've got the reverb right here, very, very wet, I think 100% wet. Yeah, and then I've just got a compressor right here, so it's being triggered by this lead.
I can taste the perfume on your neck. Dig your nails all in my back.
But it's so low, it's really only coming through on certain words. And then all together in the chorus sounds like this.
I can taste the perfume on your neck. Dig your nails all in my back. 'Cause I'm just another broken heart that you've.
That's pretty much all we have for the chorus. And then we have that little post-chorus where we have these vocal chops. It sounds a little bit something like this when I sing it.
Don't you fall in love, don't you fall in love. Don't wanna make it worth it in the end.
Tuned it a ton and then added a lot. So some DS, some auto-tune, tuning very hard, some RVox compressing very hard, detube to add some saturation, doubler to spread it out, decapitator to add some distortion and saturation, repeater to add some delay, vintage verb to add some reverb, kickstart to duck it on a quarter note, and then some EQs to filter it. And then duplicated that, pitched it up instead.
Don't you fall in love, don't you fall in love. Don't wanna make it right in the end. Don't you fall in love, don't you fall in love.
So super wide, super saturated, super wet, layered up under everything, sounds like this.
boots and the Louis V.
That's it for the chorus. Same thing happens in the last chorus. We just extend that post-chorus drop one time. But let's go ahead and talk about the second verse real quick. We're running long, so I'm going to speed through this. As you can see, we've gone back to just the snaps in the rim. We've gone back to just that back and forth little bed loop. We have taken out all of the bass. So we've got the guitar that gets really filtered out. We've got this piano layered back over. But it's kind of filtering up, and it sounds like this.
Boots and the Louis V belt. Say she only drinking it from pouring top shelf. She a little bougie, but she better than hell. Swear that she don't need a man.
We can talk about this part right here because it's a little cool. This is where that tape stop that we talked about on the guitar bus a little earlier comes into play. So I've just pitched it down, or winded it down, and then have it wind back up almost as like a little swell. And then we cut all of the synth out. There's no bass to cut out. And then we have just brought in this little like snare roll that's kind of got a cool little vibe. I put some auto pan on it and then automated some retro color so it got a little bit grittier and had this big kind of reverb throw. And then that's pretty much it. A couple risers to kind of give us that, you know, drawback.
Little bougie, but she better than hell. Swear that she don't need a man, but she coming home with me.
Then in this part, we've added this bass that I told you we would talk about. It's the last unique element of the song. I just wanted something that had a little bit more movement and a little bit more pizzazz, and then took away a little bit of that low end. Again, that preset is included. And for the synths, we ended up adding the low key pads, the piano, and those levitating keys. Use the opportunity to have a couple parts where I pull everything out, so you'll see one right here.
Times, yeah, I don't think I can escape your clutch. All of these feelings just feel too much. Maybe.
Then we're basically back to what we had for the first verse. We've just layered over some of those extra synths, so it feels a little bit different for the listener. But we're back to the kick, the snare, the snaps, the hats, the 808, just with these new things layered over.
Your clutch. All of these feelings just feel too much. Maybe we can work with all the little doubts right now.
Same exact pre-chorus, and then same exact chorus afterwards. The only thing that we change is we just have a little post-chorus repeat right here. I'll talk about it real quick because I might get some questions on it. Basically what I've done is like muted all the vocals and effects. Just so there's like that intense drawback, and then guitars have another little tape wind down, and then synths I pull out. But I didn't mute them. I was okay with a little bit of that reverb tail being left over so it didn't sound so awkward. Really, the only movement from this comes on taking out the hi-hat, taking out those crashes on the one, and then basically all it is like a kick drum and this 808 doing a... And then everything comes in after that. So I have that crash, I have those big effects impacts, all of that comes in when that snare happens on the 3, I think. Something like that is super easy to do, but it always gets the listeners pretty pumped and pretty hyped. And I think that is pretty much the entire production on this outro. We just took that guitar, tuned down. That is it. That is the whole session. So again, if you follow along with the stems or the multis, it'll probably help you see this a little bit more thoroughly. I know we had to zoom past some of the things, but at least we got to talk about the guitar chain, layering up those synths in the choruses. Again, if you want to see like the full vocal mix of this song, you can go watch the video on that we linked in the description. But I think that's it. That's the production behind my new song, Clutch. And there you have it. That is the full production project for my song Clutch. Again, it's kind of that alternative R&B pop. It's a nice little blend of hip-hop elements, R&B elements, and pop elements. And to me, this just felt like a really good song to kind of highlight that you don't have to be doing a million things in a song. I know a lot of the time on the channel we're doing these huge, massive projects with tons of layering. This one's pretty simple. It's mainly one guitar all the way through. We have some synths that come in the chorus, but other than that, it's a pretty simple production. It was really just relying on the original writing and arrangement. So hopefully this video helped. Again, if you want to download all of the stems, multis, and presets, you can go download that in the description below completely for free. And if you want to stream the song, you can head over to the link in the description and check that out as well. If you want to support the channel, head over to Make Pop Music. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Share it with a friend, share it with a peer. And then other than that, that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments down below, and we will be back next week with more content. But until then, much love, everyone.
Again, but baby, I can taste the perfume on your neck. Yeah, your nails all in my back.